Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors are able to talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. You can find us on Facebook. Guess what? The name of the page is The Writer's Dream. If you want to be on the show or you have a question that you want to ask me, please message me through that Facebook page and I will attempt to get back to you. We're also on YouTube. Just search my name, Linda Maria Frank, and it will bring you to a photograph of me. Click on the photograph and all of the shows will come up. We've interviewed over 125 authors now. So if you're interested in finding good books or you're an author and you're interested in tips, you have 125 authors to tell you about what they've been doing. We're also on ltveh.org. Go on the website. This is where the studio is, and you can also find the shows there as well. Today's guest is Cassandra Dallas, who is the author of Going Dutch. This is your first book, Cassandra.
It is my first book, and thank you for inviting me, Linda. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's a fun show. We get a lot of information out. So tell us about Going Dutch.
Okay, as you might have guessed, it takes place in the Netherlands, in the city of Amsterdam, and the main female character is a woman that is going to Amsterdam with the purpose of reestablishing Jewish artisans in the diamond industry. And she meets the most eligible, sexiest bachelor that you could ever imagine. And the book is about what happens between them, and certain things happen that can only happen in Amsterdam. And at least that's what I think. So
did Vincent van Gogh, or one of those people anyway. So I'm curious. I would have never thought, from Going Dutch, I would have never guessed that it had anything to do with the Netherlands. I would just think Dutch treat, that kind of thing. But I'm really fascinated. Where's the connection with diamonds? Do you have a Jewish artisan in your family, or do you know them, or is this just a topic you're interested in?
Well,
the diamond cutting industry,
yeah,
so to speak.
It was very prominent and prevalent in Amsterdam for hundreds and hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And actually the Jewish community of Amsterdam, I'm getting chills thinking about it, because it is was such a wonderful, viable community from the 1600s.
Amsterdam was a real cosmopolitan city at one time, especially post-Renaissance, I think.
And even before going there, I was there twice. I fell in love with the city for that very reason, that Jews from all over the world felt safe there, mm-hmm. as they did no place else, and they developed a very important industry, the diamond industry, which was destroyed by the Nazis in
along with so many other things.
Right, and Jews that escaped the Netherlands, and they were helped by the Dutch people. The most famous of which, of course, is Anne Frank. But there are many that did resettle in the United States and in New York, and probably there were diamond industry in New York and Amsterdam and in other places. But
that's where they had to flee to. But right. I have to tell you, in writing a book, the topic of diamonds is a winner, because people are fascinated by them, especially women readers.
Right.
And it's exciting. And I have to tell you just a little story about the Netherlands that I just found out last week. I went to a lecture at the New York Historical Society, and Madeleine Albright was giving the lecture. Mm-hmm. And she was speaking with a woman who had just written a book on the governments of the countries that were taken over by the Nazis in World War II, and these were governments in exile that lived in London, and the book is all about their contributions. And one of the things she brings out is the feistiest, most supportive and interactive character of all of these governments was Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands. So So to your point of it being a very vibrant city. So what happens when this young lady gets there? I mean, you don't have to give the book away, but give us a little.
Well, she meets Paul, or Jean-Paul is his given name, on the plane, and they make a date to go touring, the next day. And she's jogging through the streets of of Amsterdam, and she wants to see certain parts of Amsterdam, and she happens upon Paul that evening before they're supposed to make a date. And so they kind of get enthralled with each other, and they can't wait till tomorrow, so they have dinner that night. But before they go to dinner, she overhears him in a phone conversation, which he has in Dutch. And because she knows Yiddish, which is very similar in a lot of ways to Dutch, she gets the idea that he's breaking his date with his favorite prostitute. So
That's a turnoff.
Well, she's, we see her going through, questioning herself, and should I do this and shouldn't I do this? And
well, let's see what's going to happen, because otherwise there'd be no book.
Right.
You don't want her to meet the local minister and have the book proceed from there, or rabbi. So you have romance, and you have a little bit of history in here. What would you call this book genre-wise?
Romantic novel?
A romantic?
Not romantic. Very romantic. Sexy.
Is it a mystery? Are there elements of mystery in it?
There's some mystery to it, and there's some things that go on in Paul's life with his family that we want to hear more about. And there are some, serious things. There's actually even a trial. And there's some questioning of how the Dutch treat certain subjects in their certain crimes, which I think is very, I actually wrote the book before all the problems that we've seen surfacing with women and sexual abuse, but this really, I'm proud to say, speaks to it, especially in the case of younger women. There's a woman that's younger than the main character, that something happens to her, and
it's a relative of.
It's Paul's niece.
Yeah. Okay.
It's Paul's niece.
So, but primarily it's a romance. But I really think that bringing in all of these elements of the diamond exchange or diamond artisans, and bringing in the mystery of Jean-Paul and there's some anti-Semitism in there, sexual abuse. This is good, because it makes the book richer. It's a romance with all of these overlays, and that's what, to me, makes a really good book. So how did you manage to mesh all this together?
Well, I went to Amsterdam the first time I went with a friend of mine, and we went as tourists, and 50 Shades of Grey was very popular. And without reading it, I kind of got the idea of what it was about from a lot of comments that
Yeah, you really didn't have to read it.
That I heard about, and a few young women, in particular, were saying, it's such a cruel relationship, and they were like turned off by it. And so I said to myself, well, you have to write something that is a sexy book, and women will like it. They'll like what happens in between the male and the female protagonist. There's nothing that will make them feel uncomfortable. And someone asked me, they said, "Is this a memoir?" And I said, I wish it
Yeah.
was.
I know. I say that about my main character. It's the kid I would have liked to have been. But think about this, 50 Shades of Grey. Extreme popularity, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the women you were talking to were turned off by it, but I have a feeling that many, many readers were turned on by it.
Obviously,
and-
but I just, I had in my head and my heart that I wanted to write an answer to it in a way, and then I went to Amsterdam and was struck by how handsome all the men were and what a beautiful city it was. It's just a wonderful walking city with, like I said before, a very long Jewish history, a beautiful old synagogue built in the 1600s called the Portuguese Synagogue, and it's open to the public. But when you visit it, you have to be cleared through security.
Of course.
Which kind of makes you, understand that they're protecting something that's important to the city of Amsterdam itself.
Well, Amsterdam has had its share of terrorism simply because it is such an open city. It is open to all religions and all people and all manner of pursuits, and plus the fact that it's the home of so many artists. So, yeah, they have to be very careful of terrorism.
Yeah, they have a beautiful old part of the city called the Jordan that was revitalized and is a beautiful area, like you say, for artists. And the second time I went, it was a lot of fun. I was by myself, and everywhere I went, I said, well, I'm writing a book about your city. And people were just so, everyone speaks English there.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
That's most of Europe.
Yeah, and very, very nice people, very friendly, very well educated, and they would just tell me about themselves and about their city, and
So you got a cast of characters.
I got a cast of characters, and I felt comfortable going to a very nice Indonesian restaurant a few times, which is actually in the book, and one of the waitstaff said to me, so, have you been to the red light district? And I said, no. She said, I'm taking you. Meet me at your hotel at 10 o'clock and we'll go together. So we did. We walked to the red light district, and you have to read the book unless you've been to Amsterdam to see what it's all about. And she asked me some questions, how did I feel about it? And she felt differently. She said, this is just another business area in Amsterdam. So
And we have all those things in New York City, but they're illegal and undercover.
right. And prostitutes are called sex workers in Amsterdam, and yes and no.
Yeah, it's a different point of view.
So that kind of changed and had me add some characters to the mix, and just kind of brought the niece of the main character, Paul, into play and what happens to her.
So I think if you decide to write a romance novel, okay, I'm just thinking about, because that was the genre I wanted to start with, and then I just said, I can't do this. I was more interested in mystery, plot, history. All my books have a romance because my little teenage girl has a boyfriend. So it's a little sweet romance, but that's it. But I think today, if you want to write a romance novel, you have to figure out how to make the romance different from the usual run-of-the-mill boy meets girl, boy falls in love with, the usual thing. There has to be some dark secret in the past. There has to be some very exciting historical background. Or there has to be some aberration to the sexual content. I think that's there may be other angles, I'm sure there are, but if you want to have your book stand out, I think that's what you have to do.
Right. Well, Paul has his secrets, and they're alluded to, and Dina, the main character, is confused because she doesn't, it's not what she's overheard about him is not what she's seen, in her short but deep relationship with him. And then she finds out. And she's not sure. I guess the mystery or the tug in the book is she's not sure if she can trust him, given what he went through in his life.
Mm.
So that's the conflict. And I have to add that much of the book is sort of campy and over the top, because it was just fun to write. It was that part of the sex was just fun.
Mm.
It was fun for me to write. And when I finished it, just finished the book, not had it published or anything like that, but finished the book where I was satisfied with it. I looked in the mirror and I said, wow, you did this, and it's, I loved myself a lot more for it after finishing.
It's quite an accomplishment to write a book. It really is. So did you have somebody who inspired you to write, who helped you along the way, who gave you the right direction as you were writing it and producing the manuscript and looking for a publisher, etc.?
While I was writing it, it was very self-directed. I've written things throughout my adult life, so I was familiar with paper and pen,
Sure.
and computers, so I always enjoyed writing and got a lot of satisfaction out of it. But I finished the book, and it was in manuscript boxes and on the cloud and the computer, and I moved to Long Beach and literally the book was in a box, and I kind of put it up on the shelf in my bedroom closet and said, oh well. And the next thing I know, I'm at the Long Beach Library and someone invites me to join the Long Beach Writers Circle. And this woman, Eileen, said to me, be there Monday, 11 a.m., write about red light. And I was like, okay. And so I started attending the weekly meetings, and
That was a good topic to give you.
it
highlights.
was. And I was like, I don't know why, but
Signs. Those are signs.
I was not self-conscious about writing sexy things, and I read not so much from the book, but I just wrote some other things, and everyone was very constructively criticized me, and obviously enjoyed what I was writing, and so I started thinking about, well, maybe I started getting strength and saying, well, maybe this can be published. And I had submitted it over the last year to a few, publishers.
Traditional.
Someone knew this one, someone knew that one, and they very politely said, well, we think you should self-publish it. And I said, okay, but I don't have the computer skills for it. So one of the gentlemen in the writing circle, his name is Dennis Koch.
Oh,
and
yes, I know Dennis.
Yeah, he's the head of the Long Island Writers Guild, and he said, have I got someone to help you? Grace Pratano.
I know Grace as well.
Yeah, from Pro Press Books. She has her own independent publishing. And she was very helpful on a lot of levels. She did some editing for me, and I did most of it myself, which I want to do with the next book too, but I kind of mechanically know why it took me longer than it should have. But anyway, I was in no rush, but Grace prodded me on, and I picked out the picture, the photo, but she designed the rest of the cover, which I think is really nice. And I think it's a high quality product. So I'm very happy with it. And
Which is important.
yeah,
Which is important.
Yeah, so for anybody that is interested in writing, even if you don't have a book in mind, I would suggest trying to find a writing group, which is wonderful. This
There
is
are
what
a
I
lot
did.
of them on Long Island as well. There really are a lot of them. And so we wrote the book, we edited the book, we published the book. Now we get to the really fun part. Trying to let everybody know you have this book. So how are you going about marketing? Marketing's the tough part.
Right. I'm going about it slowly, which I think is to my comfort zone, because this book was written by a part of me that most people don't